Thank you.
I was waiting on you. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Supervisors to order. I thank everyone for coming, and it's good to see everybody in the same room again. Hopefully we'll be able to continue. At this time, I'd like to ask everybody to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Brandy, will you call the roll, please?
Here.
Here.
Here. I'm here. Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay. I have a few announcements before we start. The room is open to the public, and due to the size of the meeting room and social distancing requirement, all persons over the age of 10 that do not have a precluding medical condition are asked to wear a face covering. We will hold citizen comments near the beginning of the meeting. Also, there are several public hearings this evening. We will do our best to take citizen comments remotely, and there are two options for citizens to offer remote comments. They can join the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors Zoom webinar. That link is on our county website for you to copy and paste in your browser. They can join by telephone. That number is also listed on the county website with the webinar ID and password for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors YouTube channel, which is also on the county website. Okay, at this time, we'll have a resolution of appreciation read by Mr. Lewis.
Recognition for mom and home cricket worker. Got that, bear with me, we've done a lot. We're going to acknowledge it all here. Thank you. We got a resolution expressing appreciation for Sam W. on the occasion of his retirement from the director of Unity Development. Whereas, after 27 years of service to Rockbridge County, Sam is retiring from his position as Rockbridge County Director of Unity Development. Whereas Mr. Quickenberger grew up in the city of Charlottesville, before attending the University of South Carolina, Tennessee, where he earned a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology. He started his career in public service, case manager, team leader at West Virginia Mental Health Institute. Whereas Mr. Quickenberger received his master's degree from Virginia Polytechnic Institute of State University in landscape architecture before accepting the position of Director of Planning for Lancaster. Whereas Mr. Quickenberger's career of public service continued as a wetlands engineer for the Three Rivers Soil and Water Conservation District at Lancaster. Whereas Mr. Quickenberger retired on October 18, 1993, as Rockbridge County Director of Planning and Zoning Administrator. Whereas Mr. Quickenberger was instrumental in updating the Rockbridge County Land Development Regulations, including major revisions in 2008. These revisions include growth management initiatives, as well as major updates to regulations, landscaping, lighting, and telecommunications. Mr. Quickenberger maintained an up-to-date comprehensive plan for Rockbridge, administered several recent plans following national census that were instrumental in the establishment of the county's geographic information system office and the establishment of the tourism portal overlay review board. Whereas Mr. Quickenberger's responsibility expanded to Director of Community Development, overseeing economic development in Rockbridge County in 2009. And be faithful execution of the duties you are performing the daily tasks, planning, zoning, economic development, and the geographic office. Whereas Mr. Krickenberg served as the Secretary of the Rockbridge County Planning Commission from November 1993 to December 2012, as Secretary Treasurer for the Rockbridge County Economic Development Authority and the Rockbridge Regional Industrial Development Authority from August 2011 to May 2020. As the zoning administrator and secretary of the Fort County Appeal in 1994 retirement. As the Rural Planning Office Executive Committee Chair from 2003 to 2012. And as a member of the Shenandoah Valley Partnership Board of Directors since 2009. Whereas Mr. Krickenberger has been instrumental in economic development and planning projects at Rockbridge County from December, updates of the Center, double background brewing company, know-how expansion, creation of the National Grid State Park, implementation of the Rockbridge Area Network Authority, repurposing of three shuttered schools, continuing scenic river designation and parks of the Horn River, planned reconstruction of the Chesapeake Channel South River Bridge, Habitat for Humanity Greenhouse Village Project Planning, Phase 1 and Phase 2 for the PDC Gold Camera Award, and recognition perception, and new implementation of the Rockbridge Area Outdoor Partnership. Whereas Mr. Krickenberger has been central and impactful member of numerous boards, committees, grants, projects that benefited the citizens of Rockbridge County and the Shenandoah Valley. Whereas in 2012, as the Blessed Board, Krickenberger served as acting county administrator, providing leadership through organizational transition. Whereas over the course of his tenure with Rockbridge County, Krickenberger served under 97 elected or appointed officials of the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors, Planning Commission, Economic Development Authority, and field. Now, therefore, be resolved that the supervisors of Rockbridge County, Virginia, are hereby express deep appreciation to Samuel W. Krickenberger for his 27 years of steadfast service to the citizens of Rockbridge County, and offers sincere congratulations and best wishes for a happy and rewarding retirement. Be it further resolved that the Board of Supervisors presents this resolution of appreciation to Mr. Krickenberger to serve as a reminder that, although he is retiring, he will always be remembered for his dedication, focus, and on the public service, as well as the vital contributions he has made to ensure the integrity and economic vitality of Rockbridge. Adopted this 27th July 2000. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. I know we can't get together like we used to. I really appreciate the recognition. I've said this a couple of times, and of course the News Gazette had some really nice words to say, but had a really good team to work with for a long time. Worked with a lot of great supervisors, planning commission members, and many other folks along the way. And it's just really nice when you see a group get together and get some things done like that. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, Dan. Or Jay or Warren, can you picture the elbow thing? You know, that's all I got.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you. We'll recognize my wife Cindy here too. She doesn't get out so often. I should comment that if it weren't for meeting Cindy 40 years ago, I'd still be living in a 3-room shack with no running water in Floyd County. She's pushed me along well. Y'all have a great evening.
Okay, thank you. All right, can I have a motion to approve the resolution, please? A second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Ms. McDaniel? Yes. Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. We will now start our citizen comments. This period is to take comments unrelated to to the 6 p.m. public hearings, at which time we'll take comments related to those matters. We will take comments first by those in person, and then check to see if anyone wants to participate remotely. In all cases, we will follow our standard public comment rules. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and when speaking, please state your name and magisterial district. Is there anyone present to speak?
Glad to do that still. All right. Spencer McElroy. I'm here speaking on behalf of Limekiln in regards to the 10% admissions tax. Good to go. I guess I wanted to start by saying I understand that you guys certainly have a difficult job balancing a budget in uncertain and unprecedented times. And I also understand that there was a public hearing regarding the admissions tax via Zoom. I was personally not there and not aware of it. These are interesting times to be paying attention to the legal notices, and I know that was in there, and I missed it, and that's my fault. But just as these are uncertain and unprecedented times for you guys, certainly they are for local business owners, in particular those in the event business that rely on admissions. For example, Limekiln's admissions are down 100% this year. Me personally, am taking a 95% hit to my potential income to keep Limekiln afloat. And while I didn't expect the county necessarily to support us this year, given the challenges, we did not expect a tax on a 501c3 charity that brings in significant tourism revenue for the county. I think there's likely a strong case that this will have a negative impact on tourism and be counterproductive to the county's goals here. Now, I have to admit, I'm unsure what the protocol is, given that this has already been voted on and approved. But I plan on working with other affected businesses to put together our thoughts in a cohesive and hopefully helpful way to the Board of Supervisors, given that I think there's a strong case that this will have a negative impact, and would like the opportunity to present that to you all, and whether that's being on the agenda at another meeting or if there's another avenue, open to what you guys would suggest. I think that's about all my time.
Great, thank you.
Next up is
Mark Klein, Dinosaur Kingdom 2 up in Natural Bridge. And I'd like to start off by saying that when I moved here in 1982, I was just a kid from Waynesboro that uneducated. I had a big dream, and I just wanted to entertain people through my work. Had no idea where I was going with it. Didn't know where it was going to go, but I've come a long way. And just to let you know that I used to be on the tourism board for a little while, so it's not like I didn't know this was talked about back then. Worked with a couple of governors on Virginia tourism, and I've had lots of opportunity to promote this area. We've done Travel Channel, we've done Discovery Channel, HBO, Smithsonian Channel in Europe as well as Japan. Brought a lot of good, positive attention to this community. And my attraction is a good, clean family attraction that I'd like to say that you can compare to anywhere in the United States. Branson, Pigeon Forge, you just need to check it out. You know what I'm talking about. Just to let you know, we do a lot of philanthropy work too. Now, we don't go around and publicize this, but I do that because the money that I make, we don't get rich. I do this in many ways because I love this community. I live in a small house in Rockbridge, Mass. I drive a small truck. Anytime I go out and do anything for the community, whether it's Lexington, here, whatever, it's because it's a little bit of extra money that I have in my pocket. Charging a tax is going to be a hardship on us. I'm going to have to do less of this because of that. Whenever I do these shows or whatever, I take time to do these shows. That's money out of my pocket. All I can say is that I really love doing what I do for the community, and charging a tax is, we feel that it's a little bit outrageous as far as the amount. I would like to agree with Spencer about maybe reapproaching you all at the next supervisors meeting and discussing this, because I wasn't aware of this. Several of these people out here, they weren't aware this was coming on. We didn't get a phone call, an email, or text, anything. Yes, it was probably in public notices. People my age, we don't read that. Hell, we read the obituaries. So we may have easily missed it. We're just asking for a fair shake for us to be able to come back and address you at a later date. And that's all we're asking for.
Thank you.
I'm Matt Rutigliano. I represent the Natural Bridge Hotel as well as the Caverns at Natural Bridge. And though I can concur with the other attractions, taxes to me are, of course, a necessary evil, as we all know. From a hotel standpoint, from a guest standpoint, our job is just to get so many people to the hotel as much as possible. My job is just to make as much money as I possibly can. I know I'm going to tax the customer pays, but I get that. It's understandable. However, when it comes to spending money, people do look at total value of what they're getting for their money. If I'm at a convention center, there are citywide conventions. No, it may not pertain, but it's just somewhat relevant. Citywide conventions look at how much am I getting for the room rate? How much am I getting for the air flight coming in? What's my taxi? What's my taxi? It all plays a part. Every bit of money that someone spends, it goes into decision making of if the group's going to show up or not, or even a transit point. My issue is less the taxes, and it's another issue. I know you can't have the battle. I had a wonderful conversation with the attorney. My concern is more of the state park side. The community supports the state park. There's a friends of the state park, and yet they're not participating in the tax that supports the very county in which they reside. I know that your limitations are not really there, but that's something that more concerns me. It's the same entity that's telling us not to do business is the same entity that's telling us that we're not going to help your business as well. And that's a huge concern, just about fairness at the other. The other thing that I would like to address is the mask mandate and what the county is prepared to do. Did receive a call saying that we're getting calls from that some guests are not wearing masks or anything like that. And my response is, well, there is a mandate, and I believe we had the right to refuse, which also means we have the right not to mandate, not to force them if a guest that drives 4 or 5 hours away and doesn't wear the mask. And the response is to me, well, we could shut down your business, you could take my license away. So, I mean, my revenues are way down. I pay a lot of taxes. My revenues are way down. And now I feel like the county is kind of making it it's a little harder for me to operate. I can't afford to buy every single person a mask at the discount. I can't afford to make all my customers angry because I'm forcing them to wear them. I need to know what that balance is. I don't know what that balance is, and that gravely concerns me. I know I got a couple minutes here. I laid off a lot of people, and I'm going to have to lay them off if I'm all of a sudden telling people that they can't stay at my hotel. It's just a big concern.
Hi, I'm Lauren Summers, and I'm the Executive Director of Holes Drive-In here in Lexington. And again, I'm here to talk about the same topic, the admissions tax. And again, I take responsibility for the fact that I missed the notification of the public hearings about this before it was decided. But just wanted to share with you the impact that the decision that's been made is going to have on Holes Drive-In and the community. We are a community-owned and membership nonprofit organization. So this community is what keeps us afloat through memberships, sponsorships, and then of course, our guests that come to the drive-in. The combination of the increased meals tax that has added on top of, again, these unprecedented times, our sponsorships and memberships, which undergird our business, are down considerably, almost 50% this year. And granted, there are a lot of people out of work and whatnot. So we understand that, and we've adjusted our budget to try to not go under this year. Right now, we are on track to lose money this year, but we're hoping that we can keep the ship enough above board that we can keep moving forward. This additional 10% hit to our admissions, which is on top of, and I know a lot of people think that our admissions, that's money that we're bringing in and that's all to the good, but it's not. We pay a huge percentage of that money for licensing fees to be able to show the movies. So an additional 10% on top of that means that our budget can't adjust for that at this point in the season. So for us, the hardest part is that we're more than halfway through the season on a time that was already difficult for our guests. And even though we have lots of guests that come from outside of the area, our biggest support comes from Rockbridge County and the local area folks. So we can't add that on this year. We have to absorb that, at least for the rest of the season, which is going to be a major economic hit for the business. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that that was the implication of that. So we're basically taking a 10% on our admissions income, and we're taking an additional 2% on all of our food and beverage. So it means that we are not going to make ends meet. So I wanted to let you know that. Again, if there's any consideration, I'll talk with my fellow event folks and talk about it. If it could have been a step or a delay to start the beginning of the year so that it would be easier to assimilate, that would certainly have been helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I do this okay?
That'll be fine. Yes, sir.
I'm Carl Mogensen from the Natural Bridge Zoo. They let me out for good behavior. I think the tax is totally outrageous, maybe 3%, 5%. But why would you hit us with this 10% all at one time? It's a major thing. Our business, we're doing about half this year what we usually do our gate, which we can get by sufficiently with it, but it's a very delicate dancing maneuver. It's a 10% to me is way out of line. That's all I can say about it. I think it's totally irrational. Maybe 3%, 5%, but where did you people come up with the 10%? That's all I can say, folks.
Okay, thank you. Have we had anybody call in? Okay, then do we have any emails or written comments?
two items, one is parking goals, the other is windmills, the neighboring property. And so the pleasure I can starting.
That would be my pleasure unless there's some objections from them. Okay, that would be good. Thank you.
District President.
I believe it's stuff up there.
Well, how long is the letter?
It's not that long.
Then if you don't mind, I would love for it to be read.
Okay. Dear Board of Supervisors members, I'm writing to express myself regarding two that are the subject of this email. One is dog parking. We've been involved in discussions regarding problems of dog parking, particularly on off-road. I've been told that there is not enough authority here in the county. Employees that not going to the top of the county should take a stand associated with the detailed project that they were involved in. There is no evidence showing that this project is not a problem. It is called problem. It's called successful amounts of money by providing complications like this.
Anything else?
I don't know what this is. I don't know if it is.
It is, but come on forth and read it.
I'll read as much. I'll read as much as I can, but it's, I got. Okay. I got 5% of my phone left. I thought it was charged up, but I'm just going to go ahead and read this. And this is what Eric's thoughts are. And he also believes that we should, at some point, look at postponing this until we have another chance to fairly discuss this as a group. Anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and read this to you. This is all told to me. So, all right. So these aren't my words. These are his. It is our belief that a 10% tax on admissions will have a detrimental effect on our business. We understand that you need to increase tax revenue because of the effects of COVID-19 on your tax base. However, we are all dealing with this crisis, and we, business owners, do not have the option of increasing prices to offset higher expenses along with lower income. We are all cutting budgets. It is also untrue that the admissions tax will only affect tourists. The fewer tourists we have, the less amounts we have to spend locally, and we do spend locally. We earn 50% of our income during a 3-month period, June, July, and August, which is true. 9 months we're all working. All right. The 3-month period covers our expenses for 10 of the 12 months out of the year, which includes the 3 months we are closed, December, January, and February, as well as another 4 months when expenses exceed income, March, April, October, and November. For 2 months, we break even, May and September. When the local people talk about the long lines of the backed up traffic heading to the safari park on certain days, they never mention the majority of days where there are no lines of people. Adding a very large 10% premium to our tickets will decrease our attendance. Studies have shown that it should decrease our attendance and thus revenue by 7 to 11%, defeating your purpose. This tax changes our business income through no fault of our business practices. For every 10% tax you want to receive, we potentially lose 100% of our revenue for that ticket. Our average ticket price is $13.50 once factoring in discounts, season passes, lower admissions for children, etc. It is not the $25 as advertised in the papers. For every $1.35 you collect, we potentially lose $13.50. This tax also prevents us from raising our prices for the next few years to meet our growing demands on our business because a surcharge is now being added with absolutely no benefit to our company or our guests. Normally, we raise prices. That extra income goes towards improvements for either animals, guests, or staff. This does not. We assume all the risk and losses while you offer nothing. Think of the children's tale, the little red hen. You don't plant the wheat, you don't harvest the wheat, you don't bake the bread, but you want to eat the bread after all the work is done. Now he has more, but I know my time is up. But I just wanted to thank y'all for allowing me to read that part of it. It was totally cold, so I apologize for the struggle through that. But anyway, just let me finish off with this last paragraph. He says, settling a progressive emissions tax, which can be implemented over several years, would be more acceptable, both for our businesses and for the guests which fund our operations. Ultimately, this decision will reside with the Board of Supervisors. However, just because you have been granted the authority to tax us up to 10% does not mean it should be implemented in its entirely and or immediately. Eric Mogensen. All right. Thank you all for allowing me to do that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? No one online? Okay. All right. It's 6 p.m., so it's time to start our public hearings. The first one is on the vacation of a 10-foot utility and drainage easement of Lot 22 in the Riverbend subdivision.
We have two public hearings associated with vacation of easements or paper streets alley. The first one is by the Robies. Donald and Martha Roby have requested the county considering vacating a 10-foot utility and drainage easement along their eastern property line of Lot 22 in Riverbend subdivision. The subdivision plat included a 10-foot utility and drainage easement dedicated along each lot line. This easement was not used for utility purposes. Dominion, RANA, and the PSA have all been contacted, and none of these utility providers have a concern with vacating this easement. On March 9th, 2020, the Board of Supervisors approved taking this request to public hearing. The public hearing was originally scheduled for March 23rd, 2020, but was postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. With that, if the board would like, I can pull up Riverbend subdivision and go over the area. Is that beneficial? All right, I think I already have it pulled up on this one. So again, the Riverbend subdivision is located on the south side. Let me zoom out. South side of Old Buena Vista Road, more or less directly across the street from the Pond subdivision. And this particular lot, oops, thank you, sir. Yes. This one's warming up. So I highlighted the Roby parcel in orange there. And as noted in the original subdivision plat, there was a 10-foot utility and drainage easement along all property lines as it was listed on the plat. This particular the Robys had plans to build a workshop, in this area, and they requested to vacate that 10-foot easement so they could build within the setback area, which is 5 feet. So again, they are actually located at 58 River Jack Way. Any questions until we open up the public hearing?
Anyone have any questions? If not, we will now open the public hearing. Is anyone signed up to speak? All right, then no one has signed up to speak. We will close the public hearing. Does anyone have any comments or concerns? Hearing none, I'll entertain any motion.
I move we approve the
a motion. Do we have a second? Second. And a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Day?
Yes.
Ms. McDaniel? Yes. Mr. Lewis? Ms. Ayers?
Aye.
And the chair votes yes. It's approved. Thank you. Chris, next one.
Yes, sir. Up. All right, the next one is a very similar process. It's the Natural Bridge Heating and Air Conditioning. Mr. Donnie Shanks has requested that the county consider vacating a portion of a paper alleyway that separates 6 lots that are owned by Natural Bridge Heating and Air. The lots are located on the south side of Faulkner Highway, which is Route 130, approximately 300 feet east of Virginia Manor Lane, which is a private road in the Natural Bridge Station area. Same thing as last time. This was originally scheduled for March 9th, 2020, but was postponed. I'm sorry, the Board of Supervisors took action to take it to the public hearing on March 9th, 2020. It was scheduled for the March 23rd meeting, but that was postponed until tonight due to the COVID pandemic. So with this, just getting everyone oriented, this is Virginia Manor here. Faulkner Highway to the left of the screen is going back to the Natural Bridge area itself. To the right of the screen is going back to Glasgow. As far as the lots it sells, Mr. Shanks or Natural Bridge Heating and Air owns these 6 lots total. And the action tonight would vacate this portion of the alley that is in between those lots. You may see on the map, Mr. Shanks acquired these properties over time, and we took the same action for 1790, which is actually the heating and air conditioning facility there. And then 1798 is the mini storage units that he had. So both of those we did it under separate action because he acquired at different times. Since that time, he acquired these 6 lots here and has requested that the county vacate that portion of, I believe that's a 20-foot alley.
Any questions? Okay, at this time we'll open the public hearing, talk about the portion of the alley vacation and Natural Bridge Station. Is there anyone signed up to speak? Anybody online? Okay. And we will close the public hearing. Motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second. And a second. Mr. Lewis? Ms. McDaniel? Yes. Ms. Ayers?
Aye.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move to Hebner's Cars and Trucks application for.
Quickly, sorry.
Sorry.
And I will share the screen on this one as well. And Miss Lemon is currently a panelist. If we could promote her to attendee. Miss Lemon is representing the project. Yes, share. This is an application associated with Hebner's Cars and Trucks application for a conditional rezoning from the general residential R1 business or R1 district to the general business B1 district. Just to review the area zoning map, the dark red is general business B1. The surrounding area is residential, general residential R1. And the clear area in this case over to the east is actually the lands within the city of Buena Vista. The Hebner Lemon Tract that we're discussing tonight is outlined in magenta here. Sort of history, brief history of the zoning in the area. On July 24th, 1995, the Board of Supervisors approved the application to conditionally rezone 2.277 acres from the R1 district to the B1 district. And so that 2.277 acres are represented in the dark red here. At that time, the proffer limited to the tracts to the sales and service of manufactured homes and the existing residential usage to the southwest. Before that time, Hebner's was mobile home sales was located just outside in Rockbridge County, just outside the city limits of Buena Vista on East Midland Trail. On October 25th, 2004, the Board of Supervisors approved an application to amend the existing proffers that were associated with the earlier rezoning to allow for sales of automobiles. Proffers associated with the 2004 rezoning amendment limited the number of vehicles for sale and display to 25, to a total of 25. The current application for the 0.2 acre area parcel that adjoins the original 2.277 acre rezoning. Again, the existing Heaveners Used Cars and Trucks is located at 785 Long Hollow Road, and this is a portion just to the north of it. The rezoning application itself, the property owners are Richard and Denise Heavener and Wayne and Patricia Lemon. Ms. Lemon is here with us via Zoom to represent the project and have made an application to conditionally rezone 0.20 acres, further identified as tax parcel 7713-1B2. The 0.2 acre parcel is adjacent to the existing Heaveners Cars and Truck sales lots, currently R1 zoning. Application to conditionally rezone the parcel to B1 in order to continue to utilize the area for service for vehicle sales. The submitted proffer states to utilize the subject property for sales and service of manufactured homes and automobiles and have on display no more than 25 automobiles for sale. The Planning Commission action, the Planning Commission held their public hearing on July 8, 2020. The Planning Commission has recommended approval of the conditional rezoning with acceptance of proper conditions. We did not receive any formal comments at the Planning Commission public hearing. Prior to the Planning Commission level, due to the proximity of Buena Vista, we were required to send the city of Buena Vista certified mail just as a land adjoiner. And I spoke with Tom Roberts, the planner in Buena Vista, and he said they had no issue with this and supports the rezoning. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Lemon to review any details that I may have missed or additional details she'd like to share with the board. So I'm going to share with the shut screen. And I just was able to unmute her. Ms. Lemon, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. You are on speaker with the Board of Supervisors and you were able to see my presentation. Just if you'd like to add anything, please feel free.
I think you covered it fine. Back in '04, when we originally requested for the automobile sales, we just used the address of 785 and failed to pick up the tax map of that extra little piece. And I believe before Mr. Kirkenberger retired, he noticed it and was trying to clean up everything. So we would just like to have all that we own be in the same business. So that would, if that could be done, that would be great.
Okay, thank you. We will then open the public hearing on the Heaveners Cars and Trucks application. Is there anybody signed up to speak? All right, we will close the public hearing. Are there any questions for Ms. Heavener or for Ms. Flake? Okay. Hearing none. Does anyone wish to make a motion?
I'll make the motion we approve the request.
All right. A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis? Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Ms. McDaniel? Yes. And the chair votes yes. Motion is approved.
Ms. Lemon, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Y'all have a good evening.
Do the same.
All right, thank you, Chris. And now the ordinance to amend and enact Chapter 14, Fire Rescue, EMS, and Emergency Management of the Rockbridge County Code.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as you recall, on the June 22nd meeting of the Board of Supervisors, we received a staff report and ultimately requested a delay for the RERG and RCFA to submit a plan, an independent plan for merger of the two groups to you all by August 31st. And then additionally, we requested to move forward with some of the other proposed changes minus the ones that referenced the Fire and Rescue Commission, the RERG, and the RCFA. And those requested changes of the code included changing the wording from director to chief to align with our actual practices, along with the department name as Rockbridge County Fire Rescue instead of Department of Fire and EMS. We would add an ordinance in there for a countywide burn ban that wasn't in there previously. And then the section where with the approval from the county administrator, the chief shall have the authority to suspend the membership of a volunteer member that could be under criminal investigations that would potentially look bad on the department, look bad on the county fire rescue system, and then until that investigation was complete. Currently, already in the county code, if there's a felony charge there, they wouldn't be able to be a member anyway. So that was language.
Okay. They have any questions?
I just have a comment, especially in regards to the last thing that Chief Ramsey said about how we discipline a volunteer. I don't think that we can do that. I think ultimately the only way that you could do that would be to reduce funding to the department. And ultimately, if you do that, you're hurting the community. I don't know that even needs to be in there. We can recommend that a volunteer be suspended, but ultimately it's up to the chief or the department of that individual agency to suspend that volunteer. And if we can't enforce it, I don't know why we're putting it in the amendment.
Do you feel that we can't enforce that?
I feel that we could be in the code. And again, as it's read, it's with the county administrator approval. So there would be, this is just in here. And most of the time we would hope that we would never have to cross this bridge. And that the departments would take care of their own inside. But this has came up, the reason this is in here, we've actually had a couple of scenarios since I've been here where we've had departments approach us and ask for assistance in this matter. And at that particular time, there really wasn't any way that we could assist them. But again, it's with the county administrator's approval, so there will be a lot of working with the department and trying to work this out before we get to this level.
Could we defer to our county attorney, in their opinion?
Yes, I believe the only real legal means of enforcing these provisions would be either through defunding the department, reducing funding to the department, or dissolving it. Those are the only last resort that the county has. That doesn't mean that we can't do other things to try and work a situation like that out before it got to that point. But if it comes down to it, those are the means.
Those are the means we have currently, or those are the means we have?
Those are the means we would ever have, with or without this provision.
And that's why I made my comment that ultimately, if you do that, you're hurting the community, not that member or not that club.
Another piece of this, I think, I've heard, I want to make sure it's not finding too, though, in those times of trouble, you mentioned that parties had asked us to help. When they did ask for this option to exist.
Yes, so we have.
So this has come from some vetting from the departments. I understand.
Was it all the department or was one individual member?
No, sir, not all the, so we've talked about this at certain meetings, and once it's explained, of the ones that's had some trouble with, various things with members that they have, would like to see something to where it would be, where we could assist them with enforcing, or not really enforcing, but recommending to certain, whether it's, an officer, a treasurer that has done something, or an individual member or something like that, to where they would need, we would actually need to, be able to step in and assist them in that process.
And this is the same department or members that do not want the county to be a part of the new committee, association, whatever it is, but yet they want help with that.
Well, this particular part, this was a year and a half or so ago, when this has been in the works for quite some time, and then we were just kind of putting it all together as we were moving forward with, the merger of our RERG and RCFA.
I do struggle with that, just Mr. McDaniels. I think seemingly, attorney is saying, this enforceable. We have other options, from a negative perspective, but I think this is brought forward as sort of a collaborative goal. But if you can't do it, how? I'm just a little.
Right.
I know we've been discussing it a lot, but I guess if we come down to just that point, how? I'm not sure how. Yeah, so that's why we're here discussing.
If there was a question on it, I think you would have another shot at it. If the board determines and the RERG and the RCFA come back with as the board has asked to do, with a proposal for creating a joint association, you would have to then revisit the code again one more time. So there's another shot at it, but just throwing that out there as an option. And again, this is a request. I believe was it president of the.
Yeah, so we had actually worked with the presidents of the RERG and the RCFA at this particular time during one scenario with that we were working on, and we were at a collaborative group at that point that we should be able to do something like this if the person that should be under or would be again, hopefully this doesn't really happen again, but that person really wouldn't want to step down and want to continue business as normal with public perception, the perception of the fire rescue system, that volunteer department. So that at that particular time, we were working with the presidents of both associations.
And I just want to be clear, I'm not saying that it's not a good idea. What I'm saying is we can't enforce it while we have it in there. And if the Fire Association and the RERG are planning on coming back to us with a presentation for what they propose, why not let them include that in their presentation so that they're all asking for it from us? So it's every department within there, but they understand what they're asking for, and they understand the consequences that if they don't want to handle a situation and it gets turned over to us, there is a possibility of limiting the funds or defunding or doing away with the organization altogether. I just think they need to know what the consequences are if it gets to that point.
Okay. All right, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone that has signed up? And there is no one, so we will close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Any more concerns from the board? Anyone care to make a motion? If there is no motion, then it will die from lack of a motion. Correct? Ms. Huffman? All right. We will move on. Approval of the June 22nd, 2020 minutes. Does everyone have the opportunity to review them? Do we have a motion to approve? Do we have a second? Second. And a second. Ms. Ayers? Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis? Chair votes yes. Minutes are approved. School appropriation resolution, Mr. Foster?
School board requests a similar appropriation resolution that we would like to do. And this involves approval of grants last fiscal year. And also there's a listing of new grants for FY 2021. At the very bottom of the resolution, there's a request to approve 2020 new projects that include the Maury River Middle School field upgrade, the Rockbridge County High School track research, and folks at the youth replacement of the different that's actually in the FY 2021 CIP. Fortunately, it's less than we did. But there's no questions on recommendation. The appropriation resolution.
Any questions from Ms. Foster? Motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second. And a second. Mr. Lewis? Ms. McDaniel?
Yeah.
Ms. Ayers?
Yeah.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. The county appropriation resolution. Motion.
We go to the board docs package. Some of the activities that he wants to do is a bit continue the 2020. As you know, that's going to be. He's also preparing to issue summons for business licenses. He's analyzing assessments and the complete audits on deals and property taxes, focused on liquids and the military. There's no questions for Mr. Whiteside. Mr. Tabata wanted to indicate that the set off collections continue. You can see that there's 52 filings under $8,000 coming from taxes. As far as the real estate matters, for those who came out last month, as far as the liquid real estate parcels for the tax relief program, those were submitted to Foxford by this body on June 25th. Program. And lastly, she's going to prepare some fiscal year reports as of June 30th. Those will be the taxes. She will look out for the next meeting. And she also wanted to make sure that it was submitted up to state department of if not, go ahead and take a look at the line chart. It's in the financial package. So, big picture, at the end of the fiscal year 2020, positive revenue by $561,761. Most of that is linked to public savings on the expenditure side, but I would like to address some items that are linked to revenue. So, look, the main ones we were looking at in the last one months were sales tax, sales tax, and so for June, we ended sales tax, we ended market $222,000. That was about 23,761 compared to the same time last year. So that's actually an increase from the so all of those things that we need to do so that's quite important. So for the year, we actually hit an all-time high. $76,000. That's $277,500. So for the budget year, we actually did positive $276,000. For the meals tax, occupancy tax, and retail, so for the month of June, the meals tax we did $95,147 seats. It's actually down $52,950 compared to same time last year. Year to date, we actually came short $107,000 for 37 less. So I'm just we actually 75,000. The previous data was a comparison. Occupancy tax, October June, $47,377. That's $1,750. It's 68. As far as our year to date, we ran $198,990 less than we did last as far as revenue goes, the revenues were up, primarily compared to last year, primarily because the decal deviated. Overall, we ended fiscal year short $65,489, about 4% less than
On decals? Why would we be low on decals? I mean, what?
I would say a combination of folks that we do, so that's a combination. As far as expenditures, this is where we saw significant savings. So looking at our June expenditures, we got $552,000 less than we anticipated for the year. And the three focus saving areas that we realized was that the student carryover for school funding came in about $260,000 less than budgeted. We also have planned surplus, so we have labor call. In the 2020 budget, we had just over $201,000 in planned surplus, and that set aside capital projects to connect it to divisions to get the contract this year. And then our DSS cost will be budget as well. So those three main budget lines will completely for us moving below our planned expenditure for the 500. not. We do have a fund balance policy. And that is being carried into our fiscal year. Our metric is 20% of expenditures. That includes general fund expenditures, school division expenditures, and we pull out the transportation associated, so we do not have expended. And in the fiscal year, our operating cash was $13,075,000, which is 4% of our expenditures for the fiscal year. And so we are about $2,758,805 above the 20% as of June 30th. Are there any questions on that information? If not, we have some action items associated with this. So as I mentioned earlier, the school division budget $265,345.50 budget savings. So historically, we have been doing this to the board. They have sent Dr. Collins sent for sure email requesting that budget savings set aside into the school carryover account, this balance sheet. And so we will do that. Let's give us some framework. If this is approved, that will move the school carryover account to $944,250. If the CIP projects planned for FY 2021 are approved this fiscal year, well, that balance will come down to $489,700. And as you recall, both those anyone opposed to staff sitting outside of that? The second action item there.
If I may, I don't believe that would complete the request. That's I'm guessing. Time, but it would certainly we approve their usage of that money, then they would be able to use that at their discretion.
There was a discussion at the finance committee about legal pay, executive pay. There was a request to provide school board to use some of that funding to school code to support operating. From our discussion, what level approved that request.
You want discussion? I'm just not clear on that final decision.
The request from Dr. Thompson did include that piece as well.
Okay.
To be able to use, if needed, to be able to use the carryover to support operations.
And I just want to be clear on what the request was.
Right, and I think we came back with if they have an emergency and need more operations, rather than saying it, they can have that back, that they give us the option to provide the equivalent amount, but not necessarily from the capital fund.
That was my understanding from
Right, so for example, we might, and if they need $100,000, we might decide it's better for us to take it out of our reserves rather than lower the capital fund. But
and that was a very good suggestion. And I think we need the capital fund to grow. That's why the agreement is in place to put those monies in this isolated case. That's something to be clear on. Imagination, or if that was needed, but I agree with Dr. Lyon. It gives us some flexibility as
right.
and the source of the fund.
And they have to come back and request it with suggested at the last time we met.
Well, yes, the request would be just where is it coming from?
No, the request from them would be for the money. And it would be up to us to decide where it's coming from.
That's for any new use of operational money.
No, it's for an emergency,
Yeah.
like a contingency.
But the capital improvements that have already been approved for the
Right.
fiscal year,
Right.
they don't have to come ask us for that.
No,
That,
no.
that money, they can just,
Right.
as a transaction
But
between the
if-
superintendent. and-
Right, exactly. But if they have something unusual come up and they want more money, they have to come and ask for it.
I don't remember the water, but I don't believe it was included in that request. No, it
No.
wasn't. It found that money for it. It wasn't an amount.
It's the amount.
It was the
term.
time that it had operation. So we will work on some of that other side to further. So the finance committee met last week and we'll make a couple of requests to the full board. One is to take some of the surplus that was planned and set aside $100,000 into the general reassessment account that sits on the balance sheet. And so in fiscal years 22 and 23, we'll begin the general reassessment cycle. And so at this point, we've got 2 or 3 years ago, we had set aside $100,000 into the general reassessment account. But we're going to build it up so that we have for the actual sourcing of this project. The main reason why is this is a very significant cost. Could be around $700,000 and so the goal is to really kind of spike the expenditure that would be sourced outside of outsourced outside of that. Just trying to eliminate the pressure on future budgets on some side. That's one request. And the other request is set aside $101,100 into, again, capital accounts that we fund on the balance sheet and the general fund. And again, that could be because of selling LP projects. That's what we're asking. 100,000 general investment and 101,000 money for into capital accounts. So we're looking for a vote, which is putting it together. Next one is the actual county appropriation resolution. And so this third section is linked with what Dan is asking now. So we're bringing to the board a request to appropriate $452,538. All of those are in conjunction with two appropriation. Supporting the practice stores, the high school track, and then the action. The next section is construction project fund. These are all projects that are either work completed or started in FY 2020. We're asking the board to appropriate those dollars so we have a source of money to save the money plan. And the same is applicable to the capital fund. I would just explain on the shared vehicles. So they have ordered the vehicle, but when COVID-19 pandemic hit, let's talk to Sheriff Fund project today. So we just recently received some of the shared vehicles for the next quarter, FY outside of that, the bottom two sections are unique to primarily due to the fact that our current IT manager retired, or enforced to IT, and not having IT system in place for the and then COVID-19 here in March. A lot of information. I'm able to answer any questions. If not, there's 483 invoices in the bills list, but we can see that they total 5 of 81. If there's no questions, my recommendation is
Any questions? Do we have a motion to approve? Do we have a second? Any other discussion? Mr. Day?
Yes.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis? And the chair votes yes. Resolution is approved. Yes, sir.
I just want clarification. And if I'm out of line, just tell me to sit down. I just want to get clarification on item 15 that was brought up. My understanding is there was, there's some question about the one piece of that code, and that was the Fire and Rescue Emergency Management County Code. It sounded like the majority of the discussion was just on that one piece, and I just want to get clarity on where staff should go from here on the rest of it, because the one item that was in there was a couple items that were housekeeping, and the one was pretty important about the being able to have something in it for a fire ban, being able to assess a penalty for that. But I just wanted to, I guess, get direction on where we should go with the rest of that. It's in that, it was in the ordinance, the other changes.
Would you
Ms. Ayers, go ahead.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because it's difficult. I would like to revisit the issue that was brought up. Clearly our lawyer feels like it can't be, but maybe that can be changed. Maybe there's something, anyway, to revisit that. But is it possible that we can just go ahead and pass the rest of them and leave that out for the moment?
You have to bring it back up. You have to make a motion to bring it back
or
up.
Or would you like to just wait on this and revisit this for another month?
I also jumped up here because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't misunderstood when I said an option would be to revisit. When I say revisit, I meant just that piece. You can always strike something out of a proposed ordinance and adopt it with that piece stricken.
Mm-hmm.
That was my point. It wasn't about the entire ordinance as written. It can be amended. But in order to do that, you would need to bring it back up with a motion to revisit. And I just want to make sure that I was clear and that I didn't leave that unsaid, that maybe I miscommunicated my opinion.
And looking at Ms. Huffman, we can strike that one phrase concerning the discipline of officers and approve the other items. I think it's important that we have the ability, especially with burn bans, and I think since we don't have a director, we ought to be able to refer to the chief, and the other is just a name change. I think those are the main ones. So first, is there a motion to revisit? Second? Second. Any objection? Okay, so let's revisit it.
I was going to bring that up at some point, so I'm glad our county administrator did. Again, the one piece I think we should leave out for the time being, because to me that should come from the organization itself. But I'm fine with the other items. The only thing that I would ask, and this is not just for this particular thing, but any change in code from now on, when we're presented with that, I would like to see the original code with the red line of and then what the new code looks like, so I can compare to make sure I know what changes are being made.
Can I just ask a couple of questions? I'm trying, Ms. Huffman, I'm going to kind of ask this of our legal counsel. So are you saying that if someone embezzles money in one of them, that we don't have any, we can't exert any pressure to have that person removed? Is that what we're saying?
But exerting pressure and cooperative discussions with the department. We've been through this a few times, and we have had pretty good outcomes in the discussions that we've had with, in most cases, with agencies. They've handled the issues internally. And again, I think it's important to differentiate suspension from active call response or anything like that, and still being a member of a department. We have had some success in doing that. This would essentially codify something that was, is my recollection. I believe Chief backed that up. It was a discussion with the presidents, which is in the code now, to promulgate policy. The chief, the director, as it stands right now, is asked to coordinate policy with the association president. Is that clear as mud?
Yeah, really a little bit, but I guess what I'm saying for those things that we would like to see an immediate response, we fund, it's public dollars. I'm struggling with the notion that we can't exert pressure when something as serious as that may occur, that we have no power in that. That's what I'm struggling with. And I guess what you're saying is the only thing we can say to the whole department is we will defund you. And that won't even happen until the next budget season, correct?
Quarterly payments. Okay.
You can do that. There's no question. The board has the authority to do that, and you have the authority to do the comments that you put together. Resolve
and why
that
is
ultimate only personal actions that are available. That does not mean though that that putting in the rule is to correct.
So are you advising against this move to put in the rules? Because from my point of view, I think that giving them a backstop, giving these agencies a backstop of here's, we can do it, we might not do it, that it helps them enforce their own rules. And I just, if it is something that we can include, I listen to you, of course. I mean, I listened to Nathan, but there was a little bit of a conflict. You said that it had no teeth. Nathan felt like he could use this tool as a tool. And what happened was I wasn't sure. So I am not agreed with Mr. McDaniel. I don't really like putting things that don't have teeth, but if they serve our purpose in this case, and it gives Mr. Ramsey a tool, then I feel strongly that we should include it. And I guess I want your view on whether we should. What put you on the spot?
Probably.
I think the difficulty is that you can impose a rule and you can try to enforce that rule. We have the authority to impose the rule. But we have no other less drastic means of enforcing that rule.
So you're saying we can have it as a rule, but if they don't do it, we have no
They don't
teeth
do it.
Right.
What we have left, after all of the attempts to work things out and get compliance by talking or meeting or whatever leverage we might have, ultimately, the board has to take some rather drastic action. So what I'm telling you is, as Mr. McDaniel has pointed out, the effects are pretty extreme on the community if you take the action that's available to you.
Right, but that still exists even without the rule. Those
That
things
is
are
correct. That exists as to all the rules.
So for me, it seems like we would want a rule, and then if you don't, this is what happens. These things that we do have teeth, that we are capable of doing. I'm not sure I see why we shouldn't have this as a rule.
And if you're comfortable with backing that up, if the majority of the board is comfortable with taking that action if and when you need to, then it's not a problem to have it in the code. But you do have to be willing to accept that effect, potential effect. I think that's what Mr. McDaniel is getting at, is there is an impact, and if you're willing to go forward with that impact, that's fine. But it is a fairly drastic measure to take in these circumstances.
What I got out of Mr. Daniels' statement was you're either for it or against it, but you would like to have the feedback of the full group on that particular issue. Is that correct? Or whatever group is ultimately formed?
Yeah, that is correct.
These are public dollars.
They are, but they're independent agencies that we're giving the money to. They're not county departments. And that's where I think the conflict comes in. You know, if it was a county-run department, then certainly we could have whatever say and whatever rules we need. It's the fact that these are independent agencies operating underneath county fire and EMS. I don't disagree that it's a good thing. I'm not,
okay,
but I just don't think there's enforcement there. And the only enforcement there is what was said, either limiting the funding or dissolving the department. And in that case, if you're willing to get to that point, then it's not just a matter of what you're willing to do to that department or that member. You're impacting the entire community because they will not have the service, the response times, and all that they need from their volunteer agency.
All we're asking is that they would ask somebody to resign or they would fire someone for just cause. So I'm not sure how it would be us that would be imposing this on them. It wouldn't be that we were doing it, it would be that they were doing it. So
I agree, but the problem comes in when they say, no, we're not to do that.
I think if
to offer a possible suggestion. We said we all said we wanted to look at it, and I think we all want to find a resolution. We have asked for the groups to reconvene RERG, get those groups back, then get back together and come back with what they just proposed for the other changes. Could we just add this to that conversation, and thus ensuring that they're bringing it forward, even though we feel that they've known about it.
I think if you're going to do it, it probably should be, and I defer to Chief on this as well, but I think their focus right now is coming forward to talk about the okay. Their focus right now is to talk about forming a joint agency, a joint organization. So that's the focus. I would say that after that, when something is formed, that this could be a topic that comes up. And I want to emphasize this. This is a very uncommon issue, very uncommon. So I don't want to make it sound like this is a issue that happens all the time. This is not something that happens all the time. We got awesome people working out there.
I agree. And so it is a difficult conversation to have, but it does happen.
So one thing that you could do, if you're fine with the other changes, you'd have to remove to do that, and then and just strike this piece with the instruction to have us revisit that when the associations come together to form a joint association. Just have that one of the first time.
That's your recommendation?
Yes.
All right, we've heard the recommendation. Is there anyone that would like to take some action?
So you want us to, really? Bob, I'm gonna leave this one up to you.
I will make a motion to address the changes presented, except for the clause that has been discussed about penalties for a department member convicted of a felony. That needs to be stricken out and returned to us from whatever organization it is at the particular time.
Can it just be revisited from our point of view as well? I mean, I think that what I'm hearing is the whole board wants to move on everything but that issue. Can we revisit it as a board at another time?
That's your prerogative, but I would certainly say that's an option. But again, if you're wanting feedback from the organizations which could be impacted, which are the volunteer organizations, then you would ask to have them consider that and then bring it back.
Okay. But what if that doesn't happen? I mean, at what point do we revisit it?
I've got faith in them that they'll visit that. I think the main thing is getting together, getting the group together, but I don't have any doubt that they would visit that and just give their opinion to the board.
Okay. So we have a motion. Is there a second to the motion? We have a second.
Okay.
Mr. Lewis, second. So is there any other discussion on it at this time? Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis? Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
We haven't settled that second piece yet. Is that good?
Yes, we have. It was included in the motion that when the new organization will bring it back to us. Okay. An update on the CARES Act business assistance. Randy?
All the way you can hear me. Chairman Lyons, members of the board. As you all know, the county has received CARES funding to be used for costs and expenditures of care because of COVID-19. The Finance Committee determined that it would like to use some of that funding to assist businesses via grants. While there's a broader overview of all the potential grant uses later in the agenda, staff felt it was important for us to address this item independently. The EDA already has a grant process in place utilizing their funds. So the Finance Committee recommended leveraging that process, and we've made several adjustments to it, one of which is making it easier with less restrictions. The second is adding agricultural and silvicultural businesses, which were excluded from the first round. The third is increase the potential grant amounts and award levels based on a scoring system. The award levels would be 2,500, 5,000, and 10,000. This distribution would be through the same process that the EDA used. Agreement between the board was drafted and included in your package for your review. Last Monday, the EDA reviewed the proposal and they had a couple items that they wanted to address. They wanted to change in the grant program and add in that document that there would be a requirement for a majority of the employees to be county residents. And the application form, they wanted to strike the section that shows certifying EDA board members could not could not apply for the funding. So the finance committee met after that and reviewed that, and their intention was not to approve the first portion, which was the requirement to add majority employees be county residents. The second request, we've asked Ms. Huffman for legal opinion on that, and I'll discuss that.
So I think the initial question was whether or not this provision to restrict EDA members and board members should be included in the policies and requirements for this grant process. There's nothing in the Conflict of Interest Act that either requires it or doesn't, or prohibits it. You can do it if you want to, and if you decide to do it, it straightens everything out right from the get-go. It says what your expectations are and that you would like to avoid any appearance of a conflict by having any of your members or EDA members actually be recipients of the grant. However, regardless of what you do, the Conflict of Interest Act still applies. And it doesn't apply to the board as a whole, it applies, or to the EDA as a whole. It applies to the individuals. So if one individual from the EDA, for example, were to apply for a grant from the EDA, there are provisions that specifically say that is a conflict of interest. Now, it depends on the person and the circumstances and their business and the ownership interests and who applies and all kinds of other factual issues as to whether or not an exception might apply. But in any event, that person should definitely get an opinion from the Commonwealth's attorney to protect them in the event they are a recipient of the grant. But the question, I think, for you all at this point goes back to what I said in the beginning, is whether or not you want to make that restriction a part of the grant requirements or let it work itself out as the grants are administered. Does that answer the questions, or do you have other questions?
Any questions for the staff? I'm not sure it's a question, but Mr. Chairman, as liaison to the EDA, I listened to those comments. We are a small community. Everybody knows everybody. And, my thought on it was, we asked business owners to be on that committee for their insight, for their leadership and everything like that. But, how is it fair that we limit them, that they're not able to help their business through this period of time while others are, just because they serve our community by sitting on this committee? So, that's not an answer. We need legal advice on it. But the other piece of it is that I kind of heard was from some of them that if that's going to be the stance, that they're not allowed to apply, they may resign from the committee so that they can do what's best for their business. And by doing so, if that were to happen, our committee suffers, our community suffers because we don't have their leadership and guidance and whatnot. So I just wanted to throw that out there for the rest of the board to understand.
I absolutely agree. I think it shouldn't be there. But I'm going to listen to the legal opinion there. I think, as she said, we cannot include it. And then there are so many questions related to the individual circumstance that I think you have to be on about anyway. I would prefer to leave it to that circumstance and rather have us dictate people can't apply. There's a process that can have to be followed in. So I would prefer to not have it in there.
So is that a motion, Mr. Lewis? Okay. Do we have a second?
The motion, you need to include what to do about the other piece.
Not including the majority of employees of business be county residents.
While I agree with the spirit of that as well, I do want to help businesses located in Rockbridge. Some of their employees are not. I'd rather not see this. So I see the point, but I think I agree with one.
Do we have a second?
I hate to ask this, but could you possibly state the
The way I understand it, the motion is to strike the requirement that the majority of the employees live in Rockbridge County, and to strike the requirement or the statement that members of the board cannot apply.
I'm sorry. But I do have to ask, Mr. Lewis, would you expound again on why you don't think we should? We did not touch much on the employee.
Well, I'm sorry, the finance committee discussed that. And, you know, my thought that it is if the business is located in Rockbridge County, the lower this program is located in Rockbridge. And while I understand the spirit of them wanting to just Rockbridge citizens, with these monies, and we are helping them in some way by helping them business. But without that, the Rockbridge County employees with them. So I see that as a possible, again, allowing some businesses.
And we can consider it as part of the application process, but maybe still take it out of that. Is that correct then?
We can take it into consideration in the ranking portion of it.
Is it part of the ranking process?
It is not. We did eliminate that.
Could we include it as part of the ranking process and take it out as Jay is suggesting?
Yeah. Determining each employee where they're located, providing the proof of the information, but it's also if you have a county business that has a Lexington resident working in it, are they still going to be eliminated from the process because they're not a county resident?
And we're trying to encourage people to apply, and the more requirements you put in, the more discouraging it can be if you have a bunch of employees and you've got to, you know where they live, but then you got to document with the application. I mean, you're just adding layers of bureaucracy upon it, I think.
I will second Mr. Lewis's motion.
All right. Any further discussion? Mr. Lewis? Ms. McDaniel?
Yes.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you. Mr. Suter?
Well, you all just saved me a little time there that, I was going to ask for that motion in this item, but we're done with it. So real quickly, as reported in June, the county's received over 1.9 million in CARES Act funds, and that's passed through the Commonwealth's coffers. There's a large number of restrictions on these funds. The Finance Committee continues to work through the various pieces of guidance that we continue to get from the state and federal level. So at the board's June 2022 meeting, we reported on some broad categories of uses, and I'll just go over those: goods and services and payroll directly associated with COVID response, public facility modifications, business support and recovery, which you just touched on, K-12 education, technology and telework, fire and rescue, and regional jail costs. And in addition, since then, Mr. Bolster has coordinated with the county's auditor, Robinson Farmer Cox, to gain some additional information on allowable uses. Finance Committee met early last week and discussed some of the, and discussed the entire process in detail. Some of the costs associated with the categories are yet to be determined, and there are some areas of specific recommendation, which I'd like to go over. One of them you just handled, business support and recovery. And you just approved that program. The only thing that wasn't discussed, it was in there, but the amount was $250,000. And what I would like at the end of this is the approval for me to enter into on the board's behalf with the contract as written in that previous document or agenda item. With regard to business support and recovery, the Finance Committee also discussed participation via a $5,000 grant match in a regional Go Virginia grant to assist the Regional Small Business Development Center. That's a vehicle to assist county businesses during the response to COVID. Also, the Rockbridge County Schools, as previously reported, the Finance Committee recommends distribution of a lump sum to the schools for COVID-related expenditures. Subsequently, the school division has estimated that additional costs for technology, sanitation, and transportation will total for about $450,000. Other areas where totals are not yet available, but were discussed both in June and by the Finance Committee. One's the regional jail. Jail has done a very good job in accounting for COVID-related cleaning supplies, emergency housing, other costs. But they've also submitted requests for projects related to transportation, laundry equipment, prisoner screening equipment, and HVAC. As these costs would be shared via formula with our partner localities, Lexington and Buena Vista, the Finance Committee discussed we want to make sure that the costs are shared to ensure parity under the formula. So we're working on discussing those with the cities. Building improvements. We have some known costs for modifications already implemented or planned. We're still waiting on some estimates for others. We've already put windows at the public interaction points in the administration building. We're doing the same thing at the clerk of the circuit court's office. We're getting prices now for prox card entry to this building. It's what you would say is keyless entry, as well as potential to create some building zones here, which could help control access during the pandemic. And finally, we're working on upgrades to this very room. As you see, we've got a camera sitting on the ladder back here. Stefan has done fantastic, but we're gonna formalize this a little bit better in the ladder. So, fire and rescue. Finance Committee is continuing to review options to assist volunteer fire and rescue departments. And there's some challenges there based on the guidance that's coming in. But ultimately, should we not be able to find a clear path to use CARES Act for this purpose, the Finance Committee may suggest use of general fund dollars for some of that, but there's more to come on that. Additionally, the County Department of Fire and Rescue has submitted a request to retrofit an existing trailer for pandemic testing and inoculation camps. And the Finance Committee supports that. Technology and telework. Thus far, approximately $115,000 in technology improvements have been identified as appropriate and allowable under the CARES Act. Examples include, transition to desktop computers for some employees who could telework but currently cannot. Improvements to the network infrastructure, and again, AV equipment in this room to provide for more efficient remote meeting capacity. Towns, I've shared with you some documents in your board package that we've shared with the towns of Goshen and Glasgow, allowing for request of CARES Act funds for allowable uses, and expect requests, though we do not know yet have any totals from the town. Nonprofit agencies, we received several requests from nonprofits for the use of CARES Act funding. Finance committees continue to discuss options for potential assistance to nonprofits, which have traditionally been supported by the board. And finally, public safety compensation. The guidance issued by the U.S. Department of Treasury indicates that salaries for public safety workers are allowable uses under the CARES Act. At this point, we can estimate salary costs for public safety, but until we receive totals in other areas, we're not going to be able to ascertain what total amount of funds would be remaining to be used for this purpose. I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Mr. Bolster's here. He's been involved with this all the way through, and of course the Finance Committee. but the request is really twofold. Consider approval of the set totals of $450 for the Rockbridge County Public Schools and $250 for the EDA, provide business assistance grants, and also to authorize me to enter into an agreement with the EDA on behalf of the board as described and approved in the previous agenda item. Oh, yep, go ahead.
There should be a handout on your dais. And so because of the amount, it's nearly $2 million. It's greater than 1% impact on the adopted FY 2020 budget. It's a one page. At the very top, it says notice of public hearing. And it's got 2 paragraphs. I placed it on the very bottom of the stack of materials. So it should be underneath the budget inserts. Sarah, you just had it.
No, that was the letter from Parkland. You sure?
Give that to her. I'll take her questions.
So this is a public notice that we'd like to submit to the News Gazette tomorrow. But I don't know, is your August paper still accepting advertisements? Sure. I thought there were no stupid questions in life. I don't know what your cutoff is for going to print. So, anyway, there's a request to advertise this in the News Gazette and now the Rockbridge Advocate. And so this gives some highlights of general areas that Mr. Suter has already discussed. These are soft numbers, as Mr. Suter didn't state it this way, but these are soft numbers of where the Finance Committee has discussed spending some of the CARES Act money. The bottom portion is just the regular language that's used when we're discussing in-person and online presentation of this board meeting. So we are asking that the board give us authorization to submit this to both local papers.
You need a vote?
No.
So anybody object? Okay. Yes. Are you finished?
Well, I am, but I would like a vote on.
Right. Oh, yeah. Okay. So you would like us to approve the EDA? The
Yes.
school funding and give you the authority to enter into negotiation with the EDA. All right, do we have a motion for that? We have a motion. Do we have a second? And a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis? Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
And the Finance Committee, just as a follow-up there, Finance Committees can continue to meet and continue to make determinations of fund use based on the allowable guidance and return to the board with additional recommendations as needed. The Finance Committee is requesting and encouraging board members to contact them with any thoughts or recommendations for consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Suter. Consideration of the COVID workplace policy.
Chairman Lyons, members of the board. We'd like to give you an overview of our workplace safety standards for COVID-19 pandemic. You have in front of you the agenda, and you also have the temporary standard that was provided by the state. On July 15th, the state of Virginia adopted the first in the nation emergency workplace safety standards for the COVID-19 pandemic. The rules were designed to protect workplaces through PPE, social distancing, disease preparedness, response plans, record keeping, training, just to keep our workplaces safer. It was approved by the Safety and Health Codes Board, included, so you had the 47-page document. What we've done is took the 47-page document and came up with 11 plans to implement that. The first one is develop and implement training programs to inform employees of COVID-19 transmission methods. We have a PowerPoint just about complete that we want to do virtually for the employees at scheduled times in the future. Perform hazard assessments on all position groups, establishing workplace controls, installing barriers and shields, which Administrator Suter talked about. Some of those are already in place. Ensure diligent cleaning and disinfecting of common areas, provide all necessary PPE, follow an established response plan accurately and consistently across departments to mitigate the spread, promote self-monitoring for symptoms and fever, address symptomatic concerns when they arise, whether that be prior to work or while at work, notified employees who may have been exposed to a positive employee or customer while keeping confidentiality of identity of the known infected person, advise of travel risks and necessary precautions to take when returning, especially from areas designated as hotspots, inform employees of their leave options under the Families First Corona Response Act, and requiring that all contractors and subcontractors and vendors are made aware of the county's infectious disease policy and agree to comply. While the final guidance from the states has not been openly proclaimed, we've been proactively working to develop a plan, and we actually had a plan for return to work policy that Mr. Suter advised us to start on about a month ago. It's already in place, so a lot of these things are already being done, but there's some that we still need to work on. So we just about have the draft complete, and what we would ask is to have a future meeting with the board personnel committee and go over, adopt the final version of the policy at a board meeting on August 10th. Anyone have any questions?
This is just for the county policy. This is not just for county employees, I guess is what I'm saying. It's not something we're pushing out to county businesses. This is just for our county employees.
Correct.
I appreciate all your hard work on it. I know it's not easy, especially when you start telling people who are planning vacations to and adding requirements, especially when they come back.
I will say that a lot of really difficult things to address. Kevin was doing his dating. They've got the track done. And at the last minute, I thought, you know what, he just has to work well and look good and make sure also that there are no final changes. I think it was just great. And then that's all the work they did, and also two grand for all the work you guys did.
Any idea of when the final is supposed to come, since we don't know how to prepare for the final?
It was published in the Richmond Times today, so it's effective today. Well, it was effective July 15th, but.
Then it was a 30-day information period or something?
Some of the training items have to be done within 30 days for certain classes of employees, and then some of the items are 60 days. So
That's the other thing. I want to make sure, you need something flawless. I guess that should be.
When do you plan on meeting with the personnel committee?
Sorry,
When do you plan on having the personnel committee meeting? So if we do have questions or whatnot for those committee members, when should we submit them? By the end of this week.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, appointments, Building Code, Board of Appeals. Mr. Siler, his term has expired, and we have no applicants at this time. Is that correct? Okay, so,
He is willing to continue to serve until we can not. We're not out.
right, but we need to be actively looking. Okay. Monthly staff reports. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to review them. And I'd like a motion to have them approved. Okay.
I know it's not our jurisdiction, but the monthly recycling rate. What goes in the upper cap? Is that include like yard waste?
I will find out.
Yeah, I'm just saying. It's not relevant.
Okay, have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second. Second, Mr. Lewis, Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Any comments from the board?
I'd like to make a couple of board comments. The first one would be from the Chamber of Commerce. The Economic Development Committee is working on a series of virtual sector-based community input sessions as part of the their Ready grants. These sessions will help us gather feedback on potential economic development opportunities. There are upcoming lunch and learns, all held at 12:30 and free to chamber membership. July 30th is prescription RX and planning for Social Security on August 21st. Patents and trademarking on August 27th. Virtual job fair to be held in mid-September. And Cheers with the Chamber will be raising money for our high school scholarships on August 13th, 5 to 8 p.m. at Great Valley Farm Brewing. And they're also looking to re-envision the candidates forum this year. Please send their feedback for that. I'd also like to tourism. Marketing Director Patty Williams has been working on the PAC program. Through PAC, local businesses have the option of signing on to a hospitality pledge, ensuring consistent, dependable, and sustained level of safety and service. This signals to our visitors that we are serious about safety and social distancing, and that differentiates ourselves from other tourist destinations. Tourism launched the PAC program last month. Businesses that sign on get a package of social distancing, floor stickers. They regulate floor traffic, wall and window stickers, and etc. So I'd like to get that out to all of our businesses. There's also a lot of tourism supports that on their website as well. So that's what I have to say.
Okay. Any other board comments? All right. I have one. I'd just like to make, we've had 5 comments tonight concerning admissions tax and a request to be on a future agenda. If that's something any board member would like, please let me know so we make sure we get it on an agenda. And if something you would like, we need to do it pretty quick so we can get it at that first meeting in August if it's something the board desires. All right, at this time, I'd like a motion that we can go into a closed session.
I move that the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors convene a closed session to discuss the following as permitted by Virginia Code 2.2-3711A3, discussion or consideration of a matter involving solid waste collection centers and economic development for the acquisition of real property for public purposes. For discussion in open meeting would adversely affect the county's bargaining position or negotiating strategy.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second? And a second. Ms. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Day? Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis? And the chair votes yes. We're going into closed session and we do not anticipate any action.
I wouldn't mind one either, Spencer. Mine is all gone.
If you got one, if not, as long as I can take this fast off for a while. McDaniel?
Yeah.
Ms. Ayers?
Yep.
Mr. Lewis? Mr. Day?
Yeah.
And chair votes yes. So we're out of closed session. Right, you got the camera on?
Is any,
Okay.
Spencer, can you take me out there before Tuesday? Oh, sorry.
I move that the board certify that in closed meeting just concluded to the best of each member's knowledge, nothing was heard, discussed, or considered except the matters specifically identified in the motion to convene in closed session and lawfully permitted to be so discussed as exempt from open meeting requirement under the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act cited in that motion.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion and a second. Mr. McDaniel?
Yeah.
Mr. Day?
Yeah.
Mr. Lewis? Ms. Ayers?
Yep.
And chair votes yes. Have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All right, Mr. McDaniel?
Yeah.
Mr. Lewis? Ms. Ayers?
Okay.
Mr. Day?
Yeah.
Chair votes yes. We are adjourned. Guess I'm not gonna make it home for my 7:30 dinner.